When my daughter sat across from me at the kitchen table on the morning of June 3rd and told me it was time to think about my options, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't remind her whose name was on the deed. I set down my coffee cup, the chipped blue one I'd used every morning for 22 years, and I said, "All right, baby, let me think about it." What I didn't tell her was that I'd already started thinking. And what I was thinking would change everything she believed she knew about her mother. My name is Rosetta Mae Collins. I'm 66 years old. I spent 31 years working for the United States Postal Service. I raised one daughter in the house at 623 Pinewood Drive, Clarksville, Tennessee. My late husband Ernest and I poured the sweat equity of our hands, and more money than either of us ever made easily, into that house. And on the morning of June 3rd, 2024, my daughter sat in my kitchen and suggested I might be happier somewhere else. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments. I want to know how far this story travels. And please stay with me until the end, because what happened next is something I never planned, never imagined, and never once regretted. Ernest and I bought the house in 1982. He was 30, I was 28, and we had exactly $4,200 in savings and a belief that if we worked hard enough, a piece of ground would be ours. We were right. We laid every inch of that backyard fence ourselves. We painted every room. When the roof needed replacing in 1998, Ernest and his brother climbed up on a July Saturday in the Tennessee heat and didn't come down until it was done. Ernest passed in the spring of 2020. COVID took him in 9 days. After he was gone, my daughter and her husband moved in to help me through it. That's what she said, help me through it. They had a 2-year-old granddaughter, Nia, and I was grateful for the company. The house that had felt so loud with grief went quiet in a different way when there were little feet on the floor again. I should have known that helping through it had a shelf life. The morning of June 3rd started like most mornings did. I was up at 6, coffee made by 6:15. My daughter came down at 8:30 in her workout clothes. Her husband came down a few minutes later. He runs a small contracting crew, been trying to grow it into something bigger for 4 years. My granddaughter Nia was still asleep upstairs. My daughter sat down, and she had that particular look on her face, the one I recognized from when she was 16 and wanted something she knew I wouldn't freely give. Careful, practiced, like she'd been up rehearsing. "Mama," she said, "we've been talking." That we told me everything. She said they loved me. She said the house was a lot for a woman my age to manage alone. She said there were wonderful communities now, active senior communities, she called them, with housekeeping and social activities and medical support right on site. She showed me pictures on her phone, smiling people playing pickleball, sunlit dining rooms with linen napkins. I looked at the pictures. Then I looked at my daughter's hands, folded carefully on the table I'd owned since 1989. "I understand," I said. "Let me think about it." She looked relieved. My son-in-law, who had barely touched his coffee, looked relieved too. They'd expected a fight, they didn't get one. After my son-in-law left for work, and my daughter took Nia to her summer program, I sat at that table for a long time. Then I got up and walked through my house. Not to pack, not to inventory, just to remember. In the living room, there was still a scuff on the baseboard where Ernest had dragged a bookshelf the wrong way in 1994. I'd told him to lift it. He said sliding would be fine. He was wrong, and I never let him forget it. I ran my fingers along that scuff and smiled. In the hallway were the pencil marks on the door frame. My daughter's heights, measured every year on her birthday from age 4 to age 14, when she declared herself too old for such things. Age 436, age 844, age 1251. She stopped growing at 5'3". She never knew I kept measuring until she was 16, alone, just to hold on to the habit. In Nia's room, which used to be the guest room, which before that was my daughter's room, there were crayon drawings taped to the wall. Nia had drawn a house with a big yellow sun and 4 stick figures, her mama, her daddy, her and me. She'd labeled mine Nana Row. I went back to my bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand. Ernest used to tease me about that drawer, called it the proof drawer. He'd say, "Rosetta, why do you keep every single receipt?" And I'd tell him what my mother told me, because someday somebody's going to say something happened differently than it did, and you better be able to show the paper. I'd kept the paper. Check number 3312, September 2018. Memo, Truck down payment. My son-in-law had wanted to buy a second work truck to expand his crew. Money was tight, he said. Could we help? Check number 3589. March 2020. $9,000. After Ernest died, my daughter took over managing household expenses for 6 months. I'd given her access to my account and written her a check for the months I wasn't in a state to track anything. I trusted her. Check number 3741. November 2021, $11,500. My son-in-law wanted to register his business as an LLC, get bonded, hire a second crew. Opportunity, he called it. I helped because I believed in building something. There were more. Nia's hospital bills when she was born early and spent 2 weeks in the NICU. $400 out of pocket after their insurance. A car repair, a month of rent when they were between places before they moved in with me. Groceries I'd quietly restocked when I noticed the refrigerator getting thin. I added it up. $38,460. Over 6 years. Every bit of it a gift, because that's what you do for family. I put the receipts back. Then I picked up my phone and called my friend Pearl. Pearl Watkins and I have known each other for 37 years. We met at the post office the day I started, and she'd already been there 8. She retired 2 years before I did, and after she retired, she got her real estate license because she wasn't ready to sit down yet. Pearl answered on the second ring. Rosetta Collins, she said, don't you dare say everything's fine, because I can hear from your voice it isn't. I told her about the breakfast conversation. The pictures of senior communities on my daughter's phone, the $38,000 in the 6 years, and the way my son-in-law had looked relieved when I didn't argue. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, how much do you know about your deed? I know what's on it, I said. My name, Ernest's name before he passed. Have you pulled the county records recently? I hadn't. Rosetta, she said, get yourself a lawyer before you do anything else. I have a name. Yvonne Pierce, property law. She is the kind of woman you want on your side. I wrote down the number. Yvonne Pierce's office was downtown, 3rd floor, corner suite. She was in her mid-50s, natural silver locks, reading glasses on a beaded chain, the kind of calm that comes from having seen too much to be surprised by any of it. She listened to everything. Then she pulled up the Clarksville County property records and turned the screen toward me. Do you see this? She said. I leaned forward. There was a lien on my property, a home equity line of credit opened August 2022, amount $60,000. Borrowers listed as my daughter and my son-in-law. They used my house as collateral, I asked. Yvonne nodded slowly. You're the sole owner of record. For this to have been approved, the bank would have required your signature authorizing the HELOC. She pulled up another document and turned it toward me. Is that your signature? I looked. My name was there, Rosetta M. Collins. But the handwriting was wrong. Too looped, too neat. I've had the same rushed, slightly slanted signature since the 8th grade. That is not my signature, I said. That's what I thought, she said. Which means they forged your name to access $60,000 in equity from property you own outright. She set down her pen. Rosetta, that's fraud. I sat with that word for a moment. All the breakfasts. All the conversations about my options and my well-being, and what would make me comfortable, all of it sitting on top of a $60,000 secret. They didn't want me to leave because they were worried about me, I said. No, Yvonne said gently. They need you gone so they can refinance freely. With you on the property and your signature required for any major financial action, they're limited. Without you, they have full access to whatever equity remains. I thought of my son-in-law's contracting business. The second crew he'd always wanted, the expansion, the opportunity he kept talking about. I thought of my daughter showing me pictures of seniors in sunlit dining rooms. What can we do? I asked. Yvonne turned to a fresh page on her legal pad. First, she said, we freeze the HELOC. I'll file with the county today, citing signature irregularities. The account gets flagged pending investigation. Second, we establish a revocable living trust. You transfer the house into the trust. You remain trustee, meaning you control everything completely while you're alive. Third, as trustee, you have the legal authority to manage the property as you see fit, including issuing a notice to vacate to any occupants who are not on a formal lease. I looked at her. They never paid rent, I said. They just moved in. which makes them month-to-month tenants at will under Tennessee law, she said. You can issue a 30-day notice. Given the circumstances, I'd suggest 60 days to be generous. But Rosetta, she leaned forward, you are completely within your rights. Who would you name as beneficiary? I didn't have to think. My granddaughter, I said, Nia. Her expression softened slightly. How old? 4 years old. Yvonne wrote something down. With conservative investing, by the time she's 18, the equity in that property could fund her education, maybe more. She paused. But that's your call entirely. Come back Thursday, she said. We'll sign the trust documents. I walked out into the June heat, sat in my car without starting the engine. I have a small photograph of Ernest clipped to the visor. Both of us at a church picnic in 1995, laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. I looked at him for a long time, then I called the bank. My daughter found out 3 days before the trust was finalized. She came home from yoga and found me at the kitchen table with a folder of papers. She asked what I was looking at. I said nothing important. But she saw the corner of a document, the county seal. She reached for the folder before I could close it. I let her take it. I watched the color leave her face slowly, the way light leaves a room when a cloud passes over. Mom, her voice was smaller than I'd heard it in years. Sit down, I said. She sat. In August of 2022, I said, a home equity line of credit was opened against this property, $60,000. Your name, your husband's name, and my signature. I paused, except I didn't sign it. I set the photocopy on the table in front of her. That is not my handwriting, I said. I have written my name the same way since I was 13 years old. She opened her mouth, closed it. My daughter had not cried in front of me since she was 17. She was crying now. Not the performative kind. Real tears, the ugly ones that surprise you. We were going to pay it back, she said. Darian said we could pull the equity, grow the business, pay it down before you ever knew. I looked at her steadily. And when you suggested I move into a senior community, I asked, was that part of paying it back? She wiped her face. We needed the house, Mama. We needed to refinance without, she stopped. Without me in the way, I finished. That's not. That is exactly what it is, I said. I kept my voice even. Not because I wasn't hurting. I was. Somewhere beneath the steadiness was the kind of hurt that only family can produce. But I had made a decision and I was going to speak from that decision, not from the wound. I've given you $38,000 over 6 years. I have every check, every receipt. I never once asked for it back. You are my child and I loved you without keeping score. But $60,000 against my house, I continued, without asking, without telling, using a signature that wasn't mine. She put her face in her hands. When your husband gets home, I said, I'd like the 3 of us to sit down. My son-in-law came home at 6:15. He knew before he walked through the door. I could tell from the way he opened it, carefully, the way you open a door when you're not sure what's behind it. He sat at the kitchen table. My daughter sat beside him. I sat across. I told him what I'd told her, set the photocopy down, watched him look at it. He was quiet for a long moment. You can explain, I said, or you can listen. I'd like you to listen first. He nodded. I understand that you want to build something, I said. I understand that money is the thing standing between you and the business you've been working toward for 4 years. I understand that this house has equity, and that equity looks like a solution. What I don't understand is why you couldn't come to me and say so. He kept his eyes on the table. I would have helped you, I said. I have helped you. Every time you asked, I helped. But you didn't ask this time. You decided I was an obstacle. He didn't answer. I think you decided I was old, I said. And being old meant I wasn't really using this house anyway. I was just occupying it, taking up space. I'm 66 years old. I put 31 years into the United States Postal Service. I raised a daughter and buried a husband in this house. I am not a problem to be solved. I am the woman whose name is on the deed. My son-in-law looked up. His jaw was tight. He was not a cruel man. I'd known that from the beginning. He was ambitious and scared, and he'd made a catastrophically wrong choice. Those things can all be true at once. I'm sorry, he said. His voice was rough. Rosetta, I am truly sorry. I know you are, I told him. But sorry and fixed are 2 different things. Thursday afternoon, I was back in Yvonne's office. I signed the documents for the Rosetta May Collins Living Trust. The house at 623 Pinewood Drive transferred into the trust, effective immediately. I was named trustee. Pearl was named successor trustee. And Nia, 4 years old, asleep upstairs with her crayon drawings on the wall, was named sole beneficiary. Yvonne handed me a second envelope. Notice to vacate, she said. 60 days. They'll have until August 31st. I took the envelope. On the drive home, I thought about what kind of woman I was, whether I was being too hard. I thought about my daughter's tears and my son-in-law's hoarse apology. Then I thought about August 2022, the month someone sat down with a pen and signed my name in handwriting that wasn't mine, and used my house to take $60,000 without ever looking me in the eye. I walked through the front door and set the envelope on the kitchen table. My daughter was giving Nia a bath upstairs. I could hear Nia's voice, high and bright, talking about something only a 4-year-old finds urgent, the specific, happy nonsense of a child who has no idea what's happening around her. When my daughter came downstairs, her hair was damp at the edges. She saw the envelope. She looked at me. Notice to vacate, I said. You have 60 days. She sat down very slowly. You have until August 31st, I said. I'll help you look for apartments if you want. There are some decent ones off Riverside Drive that allow pets. If you ever get Nia that dog she keeps asking about. Mama. The house is in a trust, I said. Nia is the beneficiary. I'm the trustee. I've also rented a small apartment on Elm Street. 2 bedrooms, first floor. Good light in the mornings. I'll be moving in on the 1st. You're moving out of your own house. She looked genuinely stunned. I'm choosing to, I said. There's a difference. The house is mine. I can come back whenever I like. But right now, you and your husband need to figure out what comes next, and I need some room. Nia's feet came running down the stairs. Nana row, she said, and held up her arms. I picked her up. She smelled like baby shampoo and something sweet. Can I visit your new house? She asked. Anytime you want, I told her, standing invitation. I moved out on July 1st. I packed carefully. My clothes, Ernest's photo, which I placed on my new nightstand, my grandmother's quilt, the old drip coffee maker with the cracked handle that makes coffee exactly the way I like it, and the wooden box from the proof drawer, the receipts, the marriage certificate, the deed, the trust documents, the canceled checks. My daughter helped carry boxes without speaking much. My son-in-law loaded the heavy things into a rented truck. We were careful and quiet with each other, the way people are when the thing that needs to be said is too large for ordinary words. On the kitchen table at 623 Pinewood Drive, I left an envelope. My daughter's name on the front in my handwriting. My real handwriting. She called 2 nights later. I read the letter, she said. Her voice sounded like something had been wrung out of it. Good, I said. Mama, did you ever think about just letting it go? I thought about it, I told her honestly. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time, and I thought about how easy it would be to keep the peace. To make myself smaller so you and your husband had more room. I've been making myself smaller my whole life. It comes naturally to me. That was the problem. She was quiet. But I thought about your grandmother, I said. She used to tell me, Rosetta, the world will give you every excuse to disappear. Don't take them. I took too many. I stopped taking them on June 3rd. I didn't know, my daughter said. I didn't know how much you'd given us. I didn't know you were keeping track. I wasn't keeping track to hold it over you, I said. I kept those receipts because my mama told me to always have proof. Because she knew there'd come a day when somebody would tell me I hadn't done enough, hadn't sacrificed enough, hadn't contributed enough, and I wanted to be able to show the paper. Naya came for the first time on a Saturday in August, 2 weeks before my daughter and son-in-law moved out of the Pinewood house. She walked through my apartment slowly, touching things the way children do when they're studying a new world. She found Ernest's photo on the nightstand, both of us at the church picnic, laughing. Is that Grandpa? She asked. That's him. She picked it up carefully and studied it. He looks happy. He was, I said, most of the time. She set it back down, straightened it just right, and went to look at something else. My daughter and I have been rebuilding slowly. It isn't the same relationship we had before June 3rd. That one had cracks I'd been papering over for years. This is something we're constructing deliberately, with full knowledge of what the old one was missing. She started seeing a therapist in September and told me on one of our Sunday calls. I said I thought that was wise. She also paid back $15,000 toward the HELOC balance. Not because she was required to. The bank's fraud investigation resulted in the account being permanently closed and her husband's business credit being flagged, which was consequence enough. She paid it because she wanted to. She said so specifically. I want to pay it back because it was wrong, she told me. Not because I have to. I told her I appreciated the distinction. My son-in-law is rebuilding his business more slowly now. Less borrowed, more earned. He brought Naya by last month and sat at my small kitchen table and drank my coffee and said, "You were right, Rosetta. I took the shortcut because I was scared of the long road. I'm trying to get back on it." I told him that was a good place to be. Naya asked me afterward what the long road meant. She'd overheard. "It means the way that takes longer but gets you somewhere real," I said. She thought about that. Like when we walked to the park instead of driving. Exactly like that. The house at 623 Pinewood Drive sits in a trust that Naya will one day inherit. She'll be 18 in 2038. If I'm still here, I'll be 80. If I'm not, the house will be hers, clear, clean, no debt against it, no forged signatures, no one else's name but the people who earned it. Her grandfather poured the foundation. I painted the walls. She drew crayon pictures and taped them up in the bedroom on the second floor. That's enough of a legacy. Some mornings, I sit at my kitchen window on Elm Street and drink my coffee and watch the light come up over the parking lot and the small square of grass beyond it. It's not the backyard fence Ernest and I built with our own hands. It's not 42 years of memories in the walls, but it's mine entirely, without condition, and that is a thing I hadn't felt in longer than I'd realized. My mother used to say, "A woman who knows what she's worth doesn't need anyone to tell her. She just needs to stop accepting less." I spent 66 years learning what I was worth. I spent one morning in June deciding to act like it. I am Rosetta Mae Collins. I raised a child, buried a husband, and built something from nothing in a house on Pinewood Drive. When my daughter forgot I was a person and not a piece of property to be rearranged, I reminded her, not with anger, not with begging, but with paper. My mother was right about the proof drawer. Keep your receipts, not to punish the people who made you use them, but because you are worth the proof.